All right. So, first of all, who is Parker Dewey? So, as a background, we've been around now for about a decade. Since our founding, we are 100% focused on creating real experiential recruiting opportunities for our employers that can help you engage prospective early career talent. And we use a skills first framework to see that in action. We've really improved it to make it very accessible for all of your early career hiring needs. We've removed all the friction, the paperwork, the hassle that goes along with it, making it really easy for you to capture data and respond to such a changing environment that we're in right now when it comes to capturing college talent. Our platform also collects a ton of data, which is something that I know leadership is always looking to hear more back about. And so we'll kind of talk through all that as we get going. So first, it's important for us to define what our primary focus is here at Parker Dewey, and that's on what we call micro-internships. Essentially, these are short-term, bite-sized projects. They're completed on demand, so you can post these projects at any point in the year. They do not need to be tied to an academic class, a semester, a summer vacation, and anything like that. They can be posted today, tomorrow, next week, whatever works for you. Micro internships are meant to be what exactly they are, which is short term and bite size. They're never meant to replace your traditional internship or co-op program if that's a successful recruiting tool that you're already using. Really, it's meant to be a supplement and a way to better recruit the talent to go into those programs and into your pipelines for future full-time hires. But basically, each of these projects sort of we can help you scope the idea, and each project will end with some sort of deliverable, as opposed to being a traditional temp job or part-time role or short-term kind of gig type of work. The student's going to turn something into you at the end of this project. And so you're welcome to use that information in your day-to-day work. So let's pretend the student is creating a social media content calendar for you. You're welcome to take their work and actually implement it into your social media accounts, or you can just simply use it to assess their skills and abilities. These projects are typically anywhere between 10 to 40 hours worth of total work. We find that that's a sweet spot. They can be a little bit more. We can work with you to develop something that works best for you. As I mentioned before, they're on demand. You can participate in these projects at any point in the year. You can hang up the call with us today and post a project. They are a fixed cost, which makes it very simple and easy to get started, and they're a low cost. Most projects, I'd say, are really less than 400 to $500 a project, and we keep it low on purpose. We want to make sure that the student is receiving payment for every project that they do, and that they get to keep 90% of the total project fee. So one thing I want to kind of stop and explain here is when students complete micro internships, they're actually on our books and not yours. So we remain the employer of record for students during the entire project. We are not asking you to onboard a student, give them access to your internal databases, add them to your employee lists or anything like that when they're only going to be working connected with you for 30 or 40 hours of total work. Rather, we remain that employer of record. We're responsible for 1099ing the student, for paying them, for any issues that might come up during the experience, just so that you don't have to worry about that hassle. In order for the student to receive payment, we simply invoice you for the cost of each project. And so there's no cost at all to register on our platform. There's no cost to post a project on the platform. The only time that we will invoice you is once you select a student for a project. If you post a project and you don't like any of the students who apply, no problem. There's no fees associated with that. You can close the project up and everything will stay simple. Other than that, we just invoice you for the cost of the project, and that is our only cost. There's no cost, again, to use the platform, and we're not a staffing or recruiting or temp agency, so there's no cost as like a conversion or a finder's fee. If you're interested in bringing the student onto your permanent payroll for an internship or a full-time job. Our CEO likes to joke that it's our goal to get students off our platform, and that's because we want them to show you their skills and abilities, and then for eventually you to find them to be a great resource into adding into your own pipeline. And we're, again, happy to help you scope out project ideas, and we'll talk a little bit more of that as we move on. This is also a great benefit for the students because they're trying to figure out what they want to study. And so they may come to college and think, I'm not really sure what I want to focus on. And then they kind of do whatever they do until junior or senior year. And by then, it may be a little too late to start to engage with you. And so by offering these micro internships, especially to younger students, even freshmen and sophomores, you're getting a chance to give students exposure to your industry and your functional areas. And so they're able to better make major choices that align with wanting to come and work with you down the road. And again, you're not spending that time onboarding and training them. We handle that piece for you. So a couple of use cases, I want to talk a little bit about why your organization may want to use Parker Dewey and how you may to share this with your team. And so, primary goal for a lot of our employers is to use micro internships as a recruiting tool. And so we see this fall into two different buckets. First, employers are using this as a resource for building your talent pipeline for brand awareness. So it's possible you're not going to campus this fall because you've had a budget cut, or you're reducing the number of schools, or you're trying out different schools and you're trying to expand your experience and your exposure there. And so offering these micro internships is a great way for students to become aware of who you are and what you do. It's also a great way to help with renegs, with ghosting, and certainly to help as a keep warm strategy. So now that we're here kind of in the middle of August, a lot of internship programs at established organizations are starting to wrap up. Perhaps you've already started to extend offers for full time for the next year or for students to come back for a second internship. But you also know that some of your competition is going to be connecting with them at other recruiting events, student orgs, campus activities, and things like that. And so if you offer them a micro internship that's again low cost, low stakes, sometime around November as a way to check in with the student, it's a great way to keep them connected with you and keep them warm. Confirming fit and hiring with confidence is another great use case for employers who use micro internships for recruiting. And so here's where you may want to think about these micro internship projects almost like an audition. We kind of call them job dates, if you will. It's a chance to check the student out before you engage in a job marriage, before you bring them onto your permanent payroll. Sort of that try before you buy mentality. I used to work in higher ed and career services for a very long time prior to coming to work at Parker Dewey. And I know that a lot of students' resumes look kind of the same. They have the same major, GPA, maybe they work on campus or have some sort of part-time job. How do you differentiate student A from student B? And how do you know that the student who puts Excel on their resume as a skill can actually do what it is that you're looking for? And so again, a 10-hour project in an Excel, some sort of Excel scenario where they can kind of prove that worth to you makes you feel much better about hiring them with confidence and making sure that they're the right fit for your organization. And then certainly we see plenty of organizations just use Parker Dewey to get stuff done. Maybe you have a busy time of year. Maybe you're getting ready to start focusing on recruiting and you're going to be going to a lot of schools. And it'd be great to have an extra set of hands do some research for you on student orgs at 10 target schools. That would be a great use case for bringing on a micro intern to take care of that for you. Or maybe you have an annual fundraiser or an event. Or maybe you're an employer on this call who's never thought twice about going to college campuses, has never hired an intern before, and just wants to dip a toe in what it's like to have an early professional come and do some work for you. And so certainly micro internships are a great way to just sort of get stuff done and crossed off your list. So again, looking at pipeline. So maybe some of these students are going to have a part-time job or don't yet have the confidence to come to your on-campus recruiting events or visit your booth or come to your employer sessions, but they're still eager to start building their skills. While micro internships aren't necessarily, again, designed to replace that internship program, they're a great way to get those students engaged and aware about your opportunities. And it really starts to build a bridge to those younger students, freshmen, sophomore, who are still trying to figure out their fit, and again, make them much more aware of your organization. So you're helping them with that major choice with course selection so that by the time they're ready to come out on the other side, they've really thought through this a little bit more. They're able to create those experiences and they're excited to start to become part of your future talent pool. And so just a great way to kind of think about how you can use this again for that talent pipeline and brand awareness. Here's a couple examples of some of our actual clients who have used this in terms of building a talent pipeline. And so one example here that I want to talk a little bit more about is with Northrop Grumman. Obviously a very large, well-respected organization, but we find sometimes students aren't aware of this brand name and aren't thinking about Northrop Grumman as an opportunity. We think about it similarly with large hospital systems, for example, where some college students might think, hospitals are only for doctors and nurses. There's no career path for me as a finance major here. And so again, it's a great way to kind of build that awareness and show students the types of opportunities that you have. And so they decided to, Northrop Grumman, post an opportunity in their HR area because, again, they didn't have any issues recruiting students who are interested in engineering, for example, but we're trying to get students engaged in some of their other functional areas. And so one of our great Parker Dewey students was sort of browsing the platform, hadn't really finalized what her major was going to be. She was kind of open to see what was out there, and she stumbled on this opportunity with Northrop Grumman. It was a very straightforward project. She was helping to update a training manual. And so she was selected for the opportunity. And not only did she become much more aware of Northrop Grumman as an employer of choice for her, but she was able to solidify her major in HR. And you see a little quote from her down here in the corner of my screen. I wasn't familiar with Northrop Grumman at all before finding this micro internship. I had no idea how big of a company it was. So, again, a great way to kind of build that connections. With Train Technologies, they utilize micro interns as campus ambassadors, way to get students excited leading up to the recruiting season to want to come and connect with them for future opportunities. If you are an established employer that's very comfortable with campus recruiting and you're using Simplicity or Handshake or 1220 to post your opportunities, you may also want to think about posting a project to supplement what you're posting on some of these campus job boards on Parker Dewey as well, and using it as a tool for kind of finding that one-two punch. So again, you may have a summer internship that you're starting to recruit for summer of 2027, but posting your project as well on Parker Dewey allows that student to showcase their skills and it helps you narrow through the application avalanche, which we hear so much about, and start to cut through the noise. So here's an example of how we can sort of help you create your micro internship project. And so we're not expecting you to have all the answers on what projects are out there. I'm happy to work with you individually to talk through ideas, brainstorm some thoughts, and we're able to generate projects for you really quickly. We actually have a whole operations team that focuses on that. So make sure you have some support there. Here's an example of an entry-level data marketer role. And this was a client that we said, just send us an open job that you have, and we will convert that into some micro internships for you. And so that's exactly what we did. So we created a competitive campaign analysis, which was focusing on looking at some of their competition as far as their marketing campaigns and providing some recommendations. Again, you'll notice that the employer here is not giving any sort of access to internal tools, into client lists, into confidential data. The student is able to complete this project independently, often remotely. I should mention that too. A lot of micro internships are remote, and the student is happy to work on that project, on their own time as long as they turn it in by the deadline. You're certainly welcome to have a student join you in person, but that's not a requirement. And then you're able to sort of get access to a number of the different skills that a student's able to showcase by participating in this short-term project. Another example I want to share about seeing micro internships put into practice is with another client, Smith and Nephew. And so they have a fantastic leadership development program, and they are a medical device publicly traded company, well known in the industry, but not necessarily as commonplace among students. And so they came to us and said, how do we get students excited about our leadership development program, but also how do we find the right fit of students that are going to not only be interested, but are going to stay, complete the program, and continue on with the organization. And so we worked with them to create a very low stakes project. It was simply take a look at their entire product line, have the student pick one, and create a pitch deck based on that. So it kind of had sort of a double benefit in that it was making students more aware of their product line, which was kind of interesting, helping Smith and Nephew understand what early career talent thought of their product line and kind of understood that as well. But again, they were able to gain access to all these students and see their insights into their backgrounds. And so here you can see some of the results. They had 12 micro interns apply, what we call auditioned or selected is what I should say. So 12 micro interns completed the project. From there, they extended 6 full-time offers and 5 accepted because they had a chance to kind of see inside Smith and Nephew pretty quickly. This was all accomplished for less than 40% of typical hiring costs. They didn't have to travel anywhere. They didn't have to host a dinner. They didn't have to go, to an event. And over a year later, 100% of those 5 that accepted are still with Smith and Nephew. So a really great hiring outcome there at low cost. So again, for recruiters, this is really easy. You aren't revamping your whole process. We're not asking you to do that. We're not asking you to take away anything you're already doing, but just really looking at micro internships as something that will make each step in your process more meaningful, and really it makes sense within your current recruiting efforts. So again, if you're going to a career fair and you're investing in that time and travel away from your day-to-day desk, you want to make sure that there's a good return on that. I remember getting calls from employers when I worked in career services saying, hey, I went to your career fair. The students were great, but I've never heard from them since. They haven't followed up. They didn't actually take action. And so when you let students know, like, we've also got a micro internship. If you're genuinely interested in coming to work for us, apply for this micro internship as a next step. It's helping to narrow that wide pool of students you're meeting that day to really kind of leave available those students that are showing genuine interest. If you're trying to make a case to recruit at a new target school, it's a great way to get data really quickly because, again, these micro internships are 10 to 40 hours. You can get data on how the student performed in just a couple of weeks. So typically, micro internship projects are completed over a 2 to 3 week period for the most part. So, really quick and easy. Here you get a look at some of the results, and these are something that makes me very excited, and also the longer term outcomes. And so, also really great for reaching different demographics. 80% of the students who complete micro internships come from underrepresented backgrounds. Especially impressive statement when you compare this to students who complete traditional paid long term internships. When we look at that data, barely a quarter of paid internships are being completed by historically underrepresented students. And then, given that so many Parker Dewey micro internship projects are remote, it allows students who don't attend school in a major metropolitan area or who are working while going to school the opportunity to take advantage of these types of projects. Again, if you're a small business, if you're a startup, if you are working on your own, if you're a nonprofit, if you're not planning to participate in campus recruiting, you're now getting access to our entire nationwide network of college students across the country without having to leave your office. So it's a great way to get students excited about your organization and connect with talent from everywhere. If you're looking to focus on recruiting from a specific school, we can certainly help you with that as well, but you have those kinds of options. And so again, you can also see the cost savings, which I've talked about a little bit, is showing real impact, 40 to 80% savings. And then again, look at those retention rates. It's close to 100% of students who complete micro internships. And so when you use these opportunities to help students find their fit, it really does make a difference. And when you're giving students these opportunities and we're paying them, a few $100s to work on these short-term projects where they can continue to take on more, it leads to more time and cost effectiveness for hiring and certainly creates more equitable opportunities. Again, I know I've been talking a bit about the campus recruiting strategy and if you're looking to recruit on a larger scale, but I also want to make it very clear that Parker Dewey is for all types of employers. I work with everyone from one-person startups. I was just working with a client last week who has not even registered her company yet. And so she actually was motivated to do that because she was ready to start working with micro interns. And so one-person startups are great, nonprofits, small businesses, local government, large corporations, everything in between. We're happy to help find you micro interns. So it's really an opportunity for organizations of all shapes and sizes. And then again, certainly that get stuff done use case is obviously an option for anybody in this call. It's a great way to make those connections and start to talk to students without having to, think about it for longer term needs. You might just simply have an event, a fundraiser. You maybe need some sort of materials created for it. You just need it once and then you're done. Great. You can post a micro internship and have students applying typically within 48 hours. So it makes it really easy. Okay, I'm going to stop just for a minute. I know I've been talking a lot. Just want to check the chat, see if any questions have come through. Not seeing anything. Okay. I'm going to give a quick look into the platform so you have an idea of what we're looking at here. So we do have a really nice resource on our website, and it's called our project library. And this is just a way that you can just start to get some ideas and thoughts on different project ideas. You are by no means restricted to just doing projects in these areas, but it's just a way to kind of start thinking through. So I think we were talking about an HR project before with Northrop Grumman, so I'm going to go ahead and choose HR. And so here's a project for a job specs review. I'm going to click into the template here just to kind of see some more information. And then this takes you, once you create your account, you'll be able to get into the platform. And so this is an inside look at what the platform looks like. And so again, you're going to put your project name, your department, when you expect the project to start and end. And then here's where you're going to start to put some information in about your organization, what the student will be doing in the project, and then what the deliverable is. Because again, we're looking for students to turn something into at the end of the experience. You will also include where you're located. This is where you can toggle between remote and on-site, so you have those options there. You'll always see exactly upfront how much you owe for each project. And so in this case, a best practice is to think about paying the student the equivalent of roughly $20 to $25 an hour for the most part. So in this case, you're paying a student $20 an hour for 20 hours of work, and you see the student will receive an even $400. I mentioned before that Parker Dewey takes 10% to cover the cost of us having the students on our books, and so that's where that $44.44 comes from. And so you'll always see the total amount that you pay up front. And so that's it. There's no hidden fees or costs or anything additional. And you can certainly adjust and play around and say, you know what, I want this 30 hours. I want to pay the student, $25 an hour, whatever the case may be. You'll always see exactly here what you're looking at. On the student side, they only see what they receive. They do not see what you pay, just so that you know that. You can also include some skills here. So I'm just typing some examples in research as a skill. You can add whatever you want, or you can leave it blank. If you're looking to target a certain school, you're welcome to. So I'm gonna, let's pretend I'm targeting the Bucknell Freeman College of Management. And this way, this is highlighted only for students that attend that particular school, that particular college. If it doesn't matter to you where the student comes from, great, just leave them blank, and that will be open to all of our students, which is a great way to kind of see a taste of our student across the board. You can include if you want it open to just current students or recent grads or no preference. And then down here, we give you an opportunity to include some application questions. This is meant to help you in the screening process. So a lot of employers have questions like, do I interview the student? How does that process work when I see somebody that I like? We really leave that up to you, and we see employers kind of taking two flavor options. The first is that they feel strongly enough after reviewing the student's application that they'd be a good fit for a short-term 10-hour project, and they just go ahead and select the student. Other employers prefer to do an interview, a Zoom call, a phone call, whatever method works best for you, and you're certainly welcome to do that as well. So you have the option to interview the student or not, but we do encourage you to include some screening questions in here to kind of help sort through. So I think I use Microsoft Excel as a skill set that sometimes employers are looking to test for. So maybe you add a question, describe your experience, using Microsoft Excel, whatever the case may be. And you can add questions like that, and then makes it really easy to have students quickly answer them, and then helps you with screening. I saw a question come up from Leah Douglas. Can you share examples of how they've helped with events? So sure, we've had a lot. I personally have worked with a lot of clients that have used students for events. And again, sometimes you want to think about the fact that they're not with you permanently. So I wouldn't necessarily have a student do something for your event where they're going to have to get calls back, right? Because if they're working with you for 10 hours to help prep for an event and they're out making phone calls, and the employer or the contact calls back and it's 2 weeks later, they're not going to know how to find that student again, right? So I would use a student for events for things like researching vendors, putting together an event run of show plan, doing your event program. We had a graphic design student get hired to do an event program. Things like that, helping you get organized, just taking some of those things off your plate that you would feel comfortable handing off to a student that's not going to be with you, for the entire course of that. If you want some support on site, like with the event, that could potentially be a project as well. Like I'm just thinking about a client that had students come on site to help him with some laptop refreshes at schools that was a client of his. And so that was a great way to just sort of get some help during a busy time of year for him. So just a couple examples there. Certainly happy to talk to anybody one-on-one to kind of talk through your ideas and come up with some project ideas. Okay, I'm going to get back. Stop the share. I don't think I see any other questions as of yet. And then we're going to pop back into the presentation and just want to share a few more things before we wrap up. So it's super easy to post your project. You just think about some ideas, think about what your goals. Again, I just need help with my one event, or hey, I really want to target students, that are student athletes, whatever the case may be. And then again, students will proactively apply to your projects. We never require a school or a college to force students to apply to projects. Sometimes in higher ed, a professor will say, hey, you can get extra credit if you go to this event or you apply to this job. We're never going to require that or allow that, because we want to make sure that students who apply are actively interested in what you have to offer. So students will proactively apply, will fill out the application, and that's how you know that they're interested. And then from there, the work gets done. So once you select a student, I do recommend another best practice is set up a quick, kickoff call with them. Talk through the project with them. You can establish, a little bit more about each other. make sure that they don't have any questions, and then they can go ahead and get started. Some employers prefer that the student just gets to work in the background and then turns in the deliverable in a couple of weeks. That's fine. Or if you're trying to get to know the student more as you consider them for opportunities permanently, maybe you want to check in with them once a week. So we allow flexibility for you to decide how best to communicate with your student. And then I just saw another question pop up. If an employer decides to hire the candidate full time after the micro internship, is there a fee owed? Not at all. Nope, that's our goal. We want the students off our platform and into your organization. So there's no finder's fees, there's no conversion fees of any sort. The only time you're ever charged a fee is when you select a student for a project, just because every single project is a paid project. But that's it. There's no other fees beyond that. All right. All right, next up. So I wanted to wrap up at 1:30. I'm at 1:28, so I hopefully I didn't talk too fast, but want to remind you of your next steps from here. Again, whether your goals are recruiting, building that talent pipeline, confirming fit, or you just want to get some stuff done, I'm happy to be your next point of contact from here. You'll see that my email address is right in the slide. I'm just Emily@parkerdewey.com. Very easy to find. Happy to connect with you one-on-one and just talk through your ideas and help with any sort of support and getting you access to the platform and getting started posting projects. So again, very happy to connect. Thanks again for the time. I'm going to stop the share and just to see if there's any more questions. Where do these students go to see these micro internship postings? So on that Parker Dewey platform where I showed you those micro internship, how you set something up, the students also have access to the student side of that. So the students would log into their version of the Parker Dewey platform and they'll see all the projects listed. Again, we have some employers that post projects that are open to all. So any student at any school or college can see those opportunities. And then sometimes an employer is like, I only want students from, the state of Indiana, or I only want students that attend Indiana University. And so then a student in Connecticut would not see that project. So just as you're thinking about who you want to have access to, that's how the students will see the projects. They'll go ahead and apply, they'll fill out your application questions, and then you're welcome to connect with them from there. I'm going to include my email again in here. Next question is there a candidate database that we can search and specifically ask them to apply? So no, we do not have it set up that way, and that's on purpose. We do, again, want to put a little friction on the student side. We make it very easy for the employer and remove the friction for you. But for the student, we want to make sure that they are proactively interested in wanting to search and find you and apply. That doesn't mean to say, though, that once a student applies to your projects, certainly you're going to see data from their background and who else applied. And so if you see somebody else that looks good for an idea down the road, great, you can connect with them. But no, we don't offer it like a handshake or a simplicity where you can kind of go out and find students. These are all great questions. Any other questions?